Hello, welcome back to week number 5 of my journey to a master's in responsible AI. So I am Ram and I am a student of Open Institute of Technology. But before I go into the experience I've had in week number 5 of my journey, let me just share with you a life update. So my wife and I just recently celebrated our 5th wedding anniversary. And to celebrate it, we decided to get matching tattoos. And, I, I have it now here. You could see it. So I have it here on my right arm, right lower arm. She has it on her left upper arm. So what this means is the date of our wedding, which was held in last October 10, 2020. So that's 10/10/2020. That's why, it's XX. And in addition to that, I also had another tattoo made here, right below the back of my neck. It's kind of hidden. I haven't really seen it at the mirror because it's hard to see. This tattoo is inspired by my job, which is, a programmer. So I can't really change careers anymore because it's tattooed right at the back of my neck. So that's going to be, permanent, While I was getting tattooed, it didn't hurt as much as I expected to. So yeah, it was kind of like you were being like having a blade cut through your skin, but not really, just surface level. It felt that way. So let's now get into my experience of the 5th week of MS in responsible AI. So if last week was really heavy in terms of readings, this week was really intense. I actually spent the whole weekend just reading research papers. I had to do that because I had to write a paper analyzing an AI system that I use or that's relevant to the industry I'm in, which is, programming or software development. So the system that I chose to analyze is GitHub Copilot, which I use every day at work when I, program and code. So we had to analyze it in terms of whether it is empiricist or rationalist. Before I even started with the paper, I already had an idea of how Copilot sits in between empiricism and rationalism. But the hardest thing in terms of academic writing is you can't really write that paper without anything substantiating it, like research papers, surveys, empirical evidence. So I had to do a lot of research during the weekend and to read a lot of these research papers. And as exhausting as the whole exercise was, I did enjoy it, But more than that, I learned a lot and I was surprised by the literature that's currently out there. Especially the findings. There's a lot of people saying that AI will replace programmers, or software engineers. And there's other people who are saying that, no, that won't happen. That's not going to happen. AI is crap. It's garbage. And it won't be as intelligent as we think it would be. So I'm kind of somewhere in the middle, not really. I don't really prescribe to the argument that this will replace totally developers. It will replace some. And I'll get to that later. In terms of the debate and the research that's been happening, I particularly found a couple or 3 studies that were really interesting, especially since I didn't expect the results of their studies. So there's this perception that AI coding assistants have increased productivity. I mean, that's maybe the vast majority of people using AI, even the people who don't actually participate in these debates, would say that AI has increased their productivity as software engineers. And that's reflective in the surveys that these studies did. A lot of them, more than half, maybe at times even, up to 80% of them say that they've had experienced massive amounts of gains in terms of productivity. That's well and good. But apparently, there's a large disconnect between the perceived productivity gains versus the actual data that's been gathered in terms of efficiency and productivity gains. So it's currently a story between perceived gains versus the actual gains. These studies found that the actual gains that AI introduced in workflows and in companies in terms of software development is almost negligible or might even be negative. These studies are not saying that AI is detrimental to the software development process. That's not what they're saying. But they're saying that, yes, AI is automating, the manual tasks, like manually typing in the code. But the amount of effort that engineers are spending in building the software either remains the same or actually increases, So that's an interesting finding. Now, I think from what I've read, they're trying to find out where that effort is coming from. If the effort of software engineers to write code has been automated and decreased, where then is the focus going to? Where is it shifting? So that, I think there's a lot more studies there, since I've only spent 2 days reading on this. So there's probably more studies that I didn't find yet that might be discussing this. Where actually is the responsibility of software engineers shifting? Where is it going? So yes, there's productivity gains in terms of manual work, but the whole software development process stays the same, which is, again, a very interesting insight. They also found out, especially from the people who have been saying that, yes, this has been great. AI has been great for me. It's been helping me produce code faster and more code than ever before. But in reality, at least in this one study that I found, is that of all the suggestions of AI Copilot or GitHub Copilot presented to them, they are only accepting 25% of those suggestions. So 75% they are rejecting. So yeah, again, there's a huge disconnect between the perception versus the actual data that's being collected from software developers. So these studies have been collecting data from, thousands of developers, maybe even spanning 2-3 years. So they're actually observing how software developers have been adopting AI in their workflow. But 25% is, I think, for an AI system, that's already good. But that's my opinion. 1 out of 4, I think I expected worse, to be honest. I also found a few more research on how to effectively use AI as a companion for your software development projects. So you could see this AI companion as something like garbage in, garbage out. So the more context you provide it, the better it is in providing better suggestions. And another interesting thing that I found in one of the studies is that whenever Copilot provides that suggestion, that first suggestion, it usually isn't the best one. So if you're using Copilot or any other AI coding assistant out there, don't trust the first suggestion, because apparently they aren't actually sure about this, but they are theorizing that maybe GitHub Copilot is optimizing for some goal for that first suggestion so that you would accept it more. And instead of it actually providing the best answer, it's optimized towards that metric, and it's hurting that suggestion. So before you actually accept the suggestion of GitHub Copilot, make sure you run through all the other suggestions and see for yourself which one is actually the best one to adopt or to accept into your code base. Another counterintuitive finding that I came upon is that, from intuition, I was hoping to see that AI Copilot would actually help out seniors more than juniors in terms of, amplifying their capability. So I held this belief that the more you are capable, the more you are skilled in your craft, AI will just amplify that. So if you're really bad, it will amplify the worst in you. But if you're really good, it will make you way better, right? So that was my hypothesis. But apparently, according to this paper, that's not the case. The developers who actually gained a lot from GitHub Copilot are the juniors. And the more experienced the developer is in software development, the less advantages or the less benefits they get from AI Copilot, which is, I found really interesting. And, it went against everything that I expected. And yeah, I won't even go into hallucination. But maybe a good takeaway from it is, since AI is trained off billions of lines of publicly available code, it really does well with that. But since AI isn't trained on enterprise code, on closed source code, it actually performs really bad when it comes to, novel problems that it hasn't really seen yet. So if you want it to actually perform well on your code base, in your private code base, but first, of course, make sure that your policies, your security policies, allow for AI to actually read your code, to use it effectively for your proprietary code. Make sure you provide it with as much context as possible. Again, going back to what I mentioned earlier, garbage in, garbage out. So, for example, here in my current company, we have some quirky solutions. We have some quirky code that go against the best practices that's out there. Like, for example, React or Next.js. We have special implementation here in our company that you won't see anywhere else. So if you expect that GitHub Copilot will be able to understand why it's been implemented that way, you're going to get crappy suggestions. And I think for a software engineer to really effectively use an AI coding companion or an AI pair programmer, as they say, you really should know how the AI works. Not in terms of the theory, not in terms of knowing how it was implemented, how it was trained, more of how does this behave? And have that intuition, hey, this was trained on public code. So I can't really expect it to understand or to know the context behind our proprietary code. That's, even if you take someone, the best programmer out there, and you put him into your company, they would need some, onboarding, right? So think of it that way. You need to onboard the AI to understand your code base. I think there are ways to do this through configuration using agents.md, a markdown file where you could provide their prompts that it would load every time you ask a question, or every time you engage with the AI. There's a lot of insights that I got from the research that I did, but I don't have time to actually discuss them all. But in terms of the debate between AI automating everything versus AI augmenting human capability, I think it sits somewhere in between. Like, of course, it would automate a lot of our tasks. And personally, I love it for automating things that I don't want to do anymore, like writing boilerplate code. I really, that's, if it's something that's very repetitive, I've already done this before, I know what I expect, I let AI do it. But for things that's new to me, that if I'm exploring something, I still would want to be the one writing that code. Because, there's something about the mechanical nature, like, for example, writing on pen and paper or typing on a keyboard. There's something about it that benefits your your cognitive processes, the way you think. I think it brings clarity, and the way I see it, it uh, gets the wheels turning. And not only that, I think AI also does well in this, in augmenting that process. Like if you're really, really stuck, and even if you try to type your way into a solution, you can't really arrive at a very solid solution. AI is very good in jump starting that process, and even during that journey from ideation towards arriving at a concrete solution, as long as you have AI, as a guide, or let's say someone you get to talk to, just exchanging ideas, it's really helpful in that regard. So yeah, I already said that it automates some of the tasks that I don't want to do anymore, but it also elevates me to have a thoughtful conversation to arrive at the most optimal solution for a particular problem. So in that way, it augments my capabilities. Like we had a conversation earlier with my CTO, in that in the way he uses AI, he writes the code first, then he has AI review his code. And because AI, for like we're using right now, we recently adopted OpenAI's Codex. So Codex now has the ability to get more context out of your code base. So our CTO, because of course he's the CTO, so he's a very good developer. But you're humble enough to hand off the code that you wrote to AI for it to review the code. And because Codex had the context of our code base, it pointed out things that our CTO forgot, or have had no idea anymore, because code bases can grow very large, right? So we already have thousands of lines of codes. AI was able to augment the gaps in his knowledge, things that he already forgot existed. And the AI reminded him that, hey, you have this API, you might break it. So CTO was like, oh, yeah, that's you're right. So AI was able to augment gaps in memory and gaps in knowledge that otherwise would have been missed had AI not been there. So I left a question earlier. Do I believe that AI will replace software developers? So I answered earlier, it will replace some of them, but not all of them. This may come out as gatekeeping, but I'll explain later why it isn't. But AI will definitely expose the code monkeys. I'm sorry for the term, but the people who are in the software industry just cranking out code without really understanding what it's doing. People who just copy paste from even Stack Overflow, Reddit, and don't really try to understand if the code that they're inserting into a code base makes sense in terms of the context of the problem they're solving. So a lot of these people will most likely be replaced by AI, or at the very least be exposed. You could be coasting, like writing very crappy code just to make things work without regard for the quality of your work, just to tick boxes, just to blast through your Jira tickets. So those will probably be the ones who would be replaced by AI. But people who love solving problems, who put the effort to make sure that the quality of their code is up to par to the standards of their company and to their own standards, those are going to thrive in the era of AI. I often get a lot of flack for the things I say against AI, but I'm just a realist here. I really don't like people saying that AI is the holy grail of everything. It's not. But I also understand that AI is here to stay. It's going to impact a lot of industries. It's going to make quote unquote productivity gains. Quote unquote, like, because I said earlier that there's a disconnect there. But in terms of making sure that humans elevate the work that they do from manual labor to higher order tasks. AI will definitely do that. And yeah, unfortunately, manual repetitive tasks will get eliminated. I think that's going to be the reality, because it's already trained on that task, right? It's the repetitive tasks. It already knows that. It could just churn out those tasks over and over and over again. The question now is how it fits in the context of a certain business or a certain use case. And that decision in that context would come from humans. And that's where the weakness of AI comes, from actually coming up with novel solutions to problems it hasn't even seen yet. So yeah, that's going to be the next challenge for AI to be. Let's say, I don't believe it will achieve AGI, and I don't even know what AGI really means because there's no consensus. But let's say there's a consensus. I think the next step for AI to get closer to AGI is for it to have the ability to build really novel solutions that no one else has thought about, for new problems, for problems it hasn't even seen. So when it achieves that, maybe we're closer to AGI, whatever that means. And before I close, I just want to rant. So like I said last week, we need to make sure that the papers that we write won't be flagged as AI generated. So just to give you a bit more context, is I spent the whole Saturday again researching, and I only started the paper Sunday morning. And while starting to write that, I also needed to pull in more research papers while I'm writing that, alternating between reading and writing. And I spent so many hours doing that. And by the end of last night, around 11 p.m., around midnight, I was already exhausted. My head was throbbing, but I needed to finish the paper. So when I was finished, I ran it with Copilot and Claude to do a final check. Am I missing anything? Are my arguments good? So that's well and done. Made a few more adjustments, and I think paper is finished. So just to make sure, I went into these AI detection tools and put my paper there. One of them, I think the main one that we use, I forgot the name. I think it's Zero GPT, if I remember correctly. So it gave it like 10% AI generated. Well, fair. Some of the things on my paper came from AI suggestions that you're missing this, you're missing that. Okay, I did more research on it, added it in the paper. So 10%, not bad. But when I counter-checked with this other AI detector, it flagged my paper as 50% AI generated. And Jesus Christ, I was already exhausted. I was emotional. I felt offended. Like, who the heck are you to say that my paper is 50% AI generated? Like, it was really confident that no, I'm sure that your paper is half AI. And I was really angry since I've been working on this paper for 2 days. 2 days. And what the heck? For a machine to tell me that no, this is not created by a human, it was so offensive. And to tell you the truth, in my many years of being in academe, this is the first time that I've spent and I've exerted so much effort to writing my papers. Before, I just coasted, just the bare minimum. But here, I wanted more solid grounding in the arguments that I presented. I wanted to make sure I'm not making foolish statements, even leveraging AI to counter check my arguments, to make sure that I'm not making any fallacies or whatever. And here comes this AI tool saying that, hey bro, this was made by AI. So I think that's unfair. Actually, we in a few of my classes, we're already discussing the explainability aspect of AI. That for the suggestions or for the output that AI provides humans, it should be accompanied by explanation. It should be explainable or at least understandable. Why? Why is it saying it this way? And for these AI detection tools, there's some explanation, like saying that AI has the tendency to repeat terms like this because it's a parrot, right? So of course it would repeat some of the terms, which is quite ironic since I was deliberately dumbing down the language of my paper in fear of being flagged by AI. Since if I use very deep words that I don't often use anyway, I was afraid that AI will say that this is AI generated. So I repeated a lot of the terms that I've been using. The language that I've been using, a lot of it is repeated. And now AI is saying that because of that, this is AI generated. Like, oh my God, where do you place yourself, right? If you're someone who's writing an academic paper. So this is bad. Like I can't really imagine how students right now are feeling whenever AI flags them as AI. I mean, I can back. I have evidence that my paper wasn't AI generated because I have a whole history on Google Docs. But that started, early in the morning of Sunday up to the midnight that evening. So I'm not really concerned about that. But with exhaustion, my head was really, really hurting. And right at the very moment, right before I was about to submit the paper, this AI detector tells me that, hey, this is not human made, or it is 50% AI. It's absurd. Like, what the hell, right? But I understand, there needs to be a way to weed out students who would cheat in these requirements. So I don't believe that this is the solution, but in the absence of a better option, of a better alternative, I think at least for now, this would do. But my advice for people, for students who would be put in the same situation, make sure that you have, an audit trail. Make sure that you save the history of your work. Luckily, applications like Google Docs already have that, so that's not going to be hard. And also, if you use AI, provide the chat log as evidence of how you interacted with the AI. Right? Pretty confident that I won't be flagged by OPIT for plagiarism. What do you call this? AI plagiarism? No? I'm pretty confident, but just in case, I have evidence. And this video is actual evidence of that, right? Like how I got insights from research papers and trying to discuss it using this video. It's part of the evidence that I'm creating, just in case I get flagged formally by the academe. But it's the world we live in right now. It's frustrating. Students should be optimizing for AI detectors, but it's just the way it is. No, so I don't know. Maybe on the next paper, I'll adjust my approach again. See if how these AI detectors will react. Well, anyway, if you have thoughts, if you have any questions, any reactions, just comment them down below. I will try to answer them. I won't promise, since I'm really swamped by schoolwork right now, research and papers, and I don't even know. So yeah, that's it. I'll see you on the next episode next week. Bye.